Loud. Okay,
Okay.
good. And okay, here we go. Her topic, Hallie's topic, is electrifying your house to make the earth better. She's an architect, a LEED green associate, and LEED means special things for anyone who's into architecture and buildings. And it basically means that you really do work at trying to be green and having more sustainable buildings. She will share the story of removing the gas meter on her own home, which was built in 1961. And she'll talk about heating, cooling, hot water, solar PV systems. She'll review the provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act that provide additional rewards for home electrification. And one more little announcement about this whole thing. We've announced that we expect this program to conclude before 8:30 p.m. And we will have time for questions, answers, and comments. So I do not expect to cut us off at 8:30. I am willing to stay, but that's the time we're shooting for. So with that, Hallie, would you take off and go your own direction and tell us whatever you wish and share your screen as you like.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I appreciate you all taking the time out of your evening to join us. I'm excited to share this information. I approached Dick back in, was it September, when we had the electric vehicle show out at the UU Church, because it occurred to me that Sierra Club might be interested in having somebody speak about the Inflation Reduction Act and all the provisions in that apply to home energy improvements and electrification. And while there's certainly a lot about it I don't know, I thought maybe I would know as much as anybody who was handy to present. So I've done my best to pull together some information and organize it into a coherent fashion that helps you to relate to what it actually means to you. I guess I'll start with the story of my own home, and it's actually two homes, and I didn't put together slides for this, but back in, I must have been 2016, I was starting to think about the fact that my furnace was going to need to be replaced at the house actually that's down the street from where I'm living now, and knew that I didn't want to make a rush decision about that. And I reached out to Nate, the house whisperer, who provided the t-shirt, Electrify Everything here, who at the time had been doing energy audit consulting around Northeast Ohio and had already taken several existing homes in the Cleveland, Akron area and converted them to all electric. And when he proposed that maybe the little 1959 ranch house down the street would be a good candidate for this, I had to take a deep breath. Even as enthusiastic as I am about energy efficiency and getting off of fossil fuels, the idea of having a house without any natural gas just blew my mind. And it took me some months to kind of wrap my head around it. But we continued conversations, and ultimately I decided to move forward with that. And around the same time, we decided to have my parents move up here to Akron, and they moved into that house, and I bought another house just up the street, a 1961 split level, and we've taken it all electric too. So I've not done not one, but two homes taking off of the gas meter. This is not necessarily to say that you personally should take your house off the gas meter, and we'll talk more later on about some of the things to consider with that, and maybe in the questions afterwards can go over that. But for instance, this house that I'm in here now, we did a lot of insulation and air sealing. And it turned out that the furnace had a cracked heat exchanger, so we were going to need a new furnace. And the water tank was fairly old, so it was going to need a new water tank. And it had a beautiful south-facing roof, so and it needed new shingles. So we got to go the whole 9 yards and replaced all of those things with all electric. Put in an induction cooktop to replace the gas cooktop, and ran the 220 line out to the garage for the EV vehicle charging, and also just got an ordinary electric gas dryer. There are some other fancier options out there, but they're kind of expensive and didn't seem quite like something I was going to go into right at this time. So I've been living in an all-electric home for, it's been about 3 years now. We moved in here in 2018, and no, so that's more than 3 years. Going on 5, I guess. And everything's gone really well. We haven't had any problems with keeping up with the temperature, even during the cold snaps. And I'll explain a little bit more about the systems that help that to happen. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And I'm going to share my screen now, and I'll pull this over here, share screen, this one, share. And from the beginning, so here we go. So electrifying your house to make the earth better, and how the Inflation Reduction Act can help. So this is a great year to be talking about home energy efficiency improvements because of the Inflation Reduction Act. A year ago, we didn't know that this was going to pass, and we didn't know that all these tax credits and rebates and things were going to be available. And now we have it, and so now we can start making decisions and plans based on this information, because all of these are in place for a good long time. I believe it's 2032. So there's a whole lot of stuff in the Inflation Reduction Act that we aren't going to talk about today. But what we are going to talk about are the things that relate to energy efficiency for individual homes. And that comes in 3 forms in the Inflation Reduction Act. One is rebates at the point of sale, and those are generally geared for people who make less than 150% of an area median income. Homes rebates and tax credits. Both the rebates and the tax credits are focused on heat pumps, water heaters, stoves, upgraded electrical panels, electrical wiring, insulation, ventilation, and air sealing. So why all the focus on this electrical stuff when we're talking about home energy efficiency? And there are a few reasons for it. One is that electricity is really the only way we know how to create renewable energy, whether it's via solar or wind or hydroelectric. I know that they are trying to come up with a way to do renewable natural gas, but I don't believe that that's anything close to scale. So really, electricity is what we need to focus on. Second, the things that we buy today are going to be in use for several decades. And so whatever kind of energy they use, we will need to continue using. And if you buy a fossil fuel furnace, it's going to need to continue to use fossil fuels for another 20, 25 years. So the decision you make today is going to have an impact on the sustainability way into the future. And then as the grid gets cleaner, whatever powers it, whatever the grid powers also gets cleaner. So there is a certain amount of fossil fuel involved in generating the electricity that we're using today. However, we are in the process of improving the grid, and the changes that have been made just in the last decade or so have really been pretty impressive. So we want to be prepared to continue taking advantage of that. So talking a little bit more about the rebates end of things. The rebates are going to be implemented by individual states, and they are not yet available today. The appliance rebates for water heaters and cooktops and so forth are expected to become available during the second quarter of this year. And the rebates regarding electrical panel upgrades and that kind of thing won't be available till the fourth quarter. And the eligibility for the rebates is going to come in kind of two tiers. People who have incomes of up to 80% of the area median income will qualify for, I don't have the numbers on that, but they get larger rebates, and those with incomes between 81% and 150% get lesser rebates. And there will be a form that people can go online on the government website to fill out, and then they can take that into wherever they're buying their furnace or their cooktop, and provide that and get the rebate right there. They don't have to wait for it to come in the mail or anything like that. There's some question about whether the rebates are going to be, whether the thresholds are such that people are actually going to be able to really take a good advantage of them. I talked yesterday with Dow Seifert from the Crown Group, which does a lot of electrical appliances, heat pumps and so forth. And he's not really too sure how much extra work they're going to be getting as a result of the rebates. But these things, the rebates are still very much in process. So we'll have to wait and see. Here are some of the specifics of the rebates amounts. So for those below that 80%, you'd be able to get up to $8,000 for a central heat pump to heat and cool your home, $840 for a cooktop, and so forth. There's also this homes rebate program, which is going to be based on home energy performance of the whole house. And this is another thing that is kind of in process, and we don't know too much about exactly what it's going to look like and how easy this is going to be to use. I'm not holding my breath too much on this one being a real game changer, but we will wait and see. If you're planning to do a real whole house retrofit, this might be something to look into. But for just kind of more incremental improvements to an existing home, maybe not so much. But the tax credits are available right now. And as long as you're somebody who pays taxes, these are things that you can start making use of this year, and getting the money back when tax time comes next spring. And the credit is for 30% of the project cost. with an annual cap of either $1,200 or $2,000, depending on exactly what you're doing. This includes energy doors and windows, home energy audits, which I could do a whole nother presentation on energy audits, insulation, which relates to that, as well as air sealing, heat pumps for heating and cooling, high efficiency furnaces and boilers. So even if you are sticking with a natural gas furnace, you can still make use of the tax credits to go to a high efficiency unit. Heat pump water heaters, which you may not be familiar with what those are, and we're going to talk more about those later. Electrical panel upgrades, because if you start adding some of these electrical appliances for heating and water heating and so forth, there's a good chance that you're going to need to have some changes made to your electrical panel, especially if it's an older one. And the Inflation Reduction Act recognizes this and provides some tax credits for those as well. And then, of course, our favorite, the solar panels, with it, they're kind of the bling of the home greening stuff. And of course, electric vehicle incentives. For new vehicles, there's a $7,500 maximum tax credit. That, from my understanding, is that you may not be able to get that full tax credit amount this year, because that is dependent on where some of the components of the vehicle are made. And so, because the Inflation Reduction Act provides for this, the industry is going to be starting to adapt and generating more of those components here in North America so that the fleets can take advantage of them. But it might be tricky to find a vehicle that it can give you that full $7,500 maximum right away. And then there's also going to be a tax credit for used vehicles of up to $4,000 or up to 30% of the vehicle price. And to go with that, there are incentives for charging stations to put into your home. 30% up to $1,000 per unit of the cost of the equipment. And since we are recording, you'll be able to go back over this. If you'd request from Sierra Club to get a copy of this, you'd be able to rewatch it, and I could probably even provide the slideshow for some of the nuts and bolts here, if you're interested. So the Inflation Reduction Act focuses a lot on heat pumps. And some of you may be quite familiar with what these are, and some of you might not be. So we're going to kind of do heat pump 101 real quick here. This is a photo of a heat pump, which looks very much like the one I've got outside my own home, the compressor for it. And you might think that that looks a whole lot like an air conditioning compressor, and there's a good reason for that. An air conditioner is actually a heat pump. It's just that it only works in one direction. And a heat pump that can be used for heating is able to move heat in both directions. So not only can it take heat out of your warm house and put it out into the even hotter outdoor air in the summertime, it can also take heat out of the cold air outside. And geez, today is a great example of a day when a heat pump is just doing a fabulous job. There's all this heat out there in that 50-degree air that it can gather up and bring into the house and keep your home nice and toasty. But the new heat pump technologies continue operating down to very, very cold temperatures. And because they use compression to move heat rather than generating it, it's 3 times as efficient as electric resistance heating. So there are a few different kinds of heat pumps. You may be familiar with geothermal heat pumps, which are not truly geothermal. They are really just using the ground as the source for their heat. They're not actually using, they're still using solar energy from the heat that the sun uses to heat up the ground and keep it at that, you know, constant 50-degree-ish kind of temperature, but it's not actually using heat from volcanic sources and things. So the up in the upper left there, that's a picture of a heat pump coil in a trench out in a backyard. And I did a home a few years ago that had a system similar to that. Another kind is the ductless mini split heat pumps, which are the little cassettes that can be wall mounted. They do have some that are more ceiling cassettes. And these have smaller compressors that go on the outside of the house and don't use the big metal ductwork to go through the whole house. Instead, they kind of provide the heat right there in the space where you're going to be using it, which means that on the one hand, the units themselves are a little bit more expensive than a central unit. But on the other hand, you don't need to install a duct system. And so that can save money. And they're very efficient and operate down to like minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit. So for small, super insulated new homes, the ductless mini splits are the way to go. And they can also be really useful if you don't have a central ductwork for air conditioning. You can use them to provide a little bit of cooling for the house. And if you do that, just bear in mind that you can also use them to bring in some heat. And even if you've got a natural gas boiler providing most of your heating, you could use those mini split units to provide some of the heating, especially in the shoulder months. And had one more thought on that, but lost what that is. And then down in the bottom middle, this is a heat pump for a central system, which when you look down in your basement, the unit looks very much like the air handler for an actual furnace. But it doesn't use any natural gas. There's no flame. There's no risk of carbon monoxide poisoning because it's not creating products of combustion. I've still got a CO detector in my house, but there really isn't a lot of reason to have it other than the gas-powered vehicle that still lives in the garage sometimes. So, and this kind of system, let's see, what do I have? Okay, yes. Air source heat pumps like this are used on 15 to 20% of new homes in our region that go all electric. And the main reason up till this year for people to go all electric in our neck of the woods has been mostly in developments where they don't have natural gas service. So this is already being done, you know, on a large scale, even by people who are not particularly concerned about sustainability, just because it's really expensive to run natural gas lines to a development. And I could talk also about the risks to the environment of leaks from that natural gas distribution system, which would be another great reason to start pruning back the natural gas lines. But one of the things to be aware of with these central air source heat pumps is that you don't want to go with inexpensive equipment, because the lower end equipment can apparently end up with significantly higher energy costs. But if you go with a good variable speed unit, it's really not an issue. Another thing to be aware of is that most of these units are sized in such a way that they kind of find a balance point where the cost of upgrading the size of the heat pump pays for itself in but you don't necessarily want to size the heat pump component of this to provide for all of your heat on the very coldest day of the year. So that cold snap back around Christmas time, the electric coil heating in my unit kicked in and was providing all the heat we needed. But that electric coil is only operating at 100% efficiency as opposed to the 300% efficiency of the heat pump. So getting the unit sized appropriately is another thing. I don't think there's really a limit to how much a heat pump could provide for a home. It's just that it's not really practical to size it this big for a handful of days. When these, the backup strip heating is very inexpensive to include in the equipment. Just to be clear, it is totally possible to do a new home that creates as much energy as it uses in Northeast Ohio now. This is a picture of a home that was completed this past summer up in Moreland Hills. This roof surface, that beautiful unobstructed roof surface that we're looking at there is now covered with solar panels, which is oriented to the south. And this home is also super insulated. It's got 2x6 walls plus an R7.5 of rigid insulation on the exterior. And it's got really extraordinarily good air sealing. I've got a contractor who just really sweats the details on these things. And that green zip system sheathing is part of the magic of how to get the really good air sealing, because air sealing is every bit as important, if not more important, than insulation values when it comes to a home. So for new homes, we can do it. We can get to net zero. Not a problem. On existing homes, it's really not practical to expect that you're going to be able to do all your heating and hot water and cooking and charge a vehicle from the electricity and have your own solar panels on your own roof provide all that energy. But it is possible to get all of that energy from renewable sources, because here in Ohio, we do have energy choice. So you're able to choose an all electric supplier. But as I said, even if you're using just a standard SEO option or something for your electric supplier, as the grid is going to continue to get cleaner, and therefore your home will as well. So on existing homes, some homes are really just not going to be quite as easy to go all electric as others. These mid-century homes that I'm in, it was pretty straightforward to be able to get lots and lots of fluffy insulation in the attic. But a lot of the homes here in Akron and throughout the region have built, and especially those built in the 19-teens and 20s, have finished attic spaces, or some of the capes built post-war, where the upper level has the sloping ceiling, and you've only got 5.5 inches of roof rafter between the heated space and the outside world. And we could get into doing a real deep energy retrofit to find ways to get more insulation on that roof surface. But if you're kind of just wanting to leave a finished space that's already finished alone, and you're not needing to do a total roof tear off and rebuild your eaves and things anytime soon. Those homes with the sloping ceiling on the upper level are a challenge to do. Homes with a lot of dormers, the different things. The more complex the home is, the trickier it's going to be. So for those kinds of homes, just keeping your current heating system and replacing the air conditioner, if there is one, with the heat pump is definitely an option. Anytime you replace your air conditioner, that is a great opportunity to get yourself a heat pump, because it'll do the same job, pay just a little bit more for the heat pump feature so that you can use it both directions, and you can start weaning your house off of the fossil fuels that way. You do want to get those higher efficiency units with the variable speed features. Now, for those homes that really are kind of a good fit and can have pretty good insulation levels and so forth, if going that last step and getting rid of the gas meter can help you to make the whole thing make sense financially, because just having a relationship with the gas company costs something like $36 a month, which, you know, starts to add up over the course of a year. So for instance, after my parents moved out of the house down the street, the young couple who bought the house initially thought maybe they kind of wanted to have the gas in the fireplace, but it really doesn't make sense to have gas to the house just in order to do the gas on the fireplace. So here is another kind of heat pump that many of us are not familiar with. This is a heat pump water heater, and it uses the same kind of compression of a fluid to move heat from air into the water. And right now, most of these units take the heat from the air around them. So it's actually using the heat that the main house system has created in order to heat the water. But they're working on units that will actually grab the heat from outdoor air. This is an alternative to a lot of people who've been following these things for some time, have on-demand systems. And there are situations where on-demand water heating does make good sense. The advantage of the on-demand system is that you don't have the heat loss just from the water in the tank losing heat over time. And so you're only heating the water that when you need it. That also has the kind of catch-20 or 6 one way, 6 the other way. If you've got a house full of teenagers, those on-demand systems can use more energy because there's no end to the possible hot water, as opposed to getting to the end of the tank and the teenagers just have to get out of the shower. However, let's see, the electric on-demand systems, if you're wanting to move away from the fossil fuels and go to the electric systems, then those electric on-demand systems still use resistance heating rather than the higher efficiency of the heat pump. And also those use the energy right when you need them. So you're not able to, if you're in the habit of taking showers in the morning, and that's when the businesses and so forth are ramping up their own use of electricity, you're not able to wait until a time when there's more electricity available in the grid to heat your water. These you can do, they've got smart ones that can actually wait until it's nighttime and do most of the water heating then, which is going to help with the grid management. And then this is another thing that I hope a number of you have been researching, but this is also one of the things that is sometimes a big sticking point for people thinking about getting off of the natural gas is the cooktop. I know for years and years, cooking with gas was definitely the way to go. People liked the ability to control the flame and the amount of heat much more accurately than they could with the electric coils. People liked the ability to change those heat levels immediately, as opposed to the coil would get hot and it would take a while for it to cool down. The induction cooktop, has all the accuracy, if not more, than the natural gas ones. And they are better for your health, because when you turn on a natural gas burner, you're introducing those products of combustion into your home. And I highly recommend that if you do have a gas cooktop, that you either crack a window or turn on your vent that vents to the exterior when you use it. Simply cooking, it's still good to have a vent that vents to the exterior, because just those cooking aromas have a certain level of health impact as well. So it's still good to move that out of the house. And then, as you can see in this this picture here, you've got the steam coming off. Managing the moisture levels from doing a lot of cooking on around a big holiday, or if you've got a big pot of spaghetti going, as well as this and that, you can start overloading your home with moisture, which can be an issue, especially in the winter. On the one hand, the house may feel too dry, but when the temperature outside is really cold, you can start having difficulties with condensation on window surfaces, and worst case scenario in your wall cavities. If you've got air leaks, that moisture is going to travel on that air, find the first cold surface it can, and turn into liquid water, which is not a good thing for your house. So induction cooktops, I've been cooking with one for like 5 years now, and I just love it. I think it's great. And Consumer Reports has got a few articles about how much they are appreciating the performance of these units too. Then talking about solar, there's that 30% tax credit through 2023. So you've got, no, that's the wrong year. Excuse me. 2032, I believe. And that means that you can start planning for this. If you've got some unshaded roof that faces south, west, or east, that's a good start. South is best because it gets sun for the longest, especially in the wintertime. But west and east is also somewhat useful. You can see here we've got a few panels on the west-facing roof slope. Simpler roof surfaces. As I'm designing new homes, I'm always thinking about keeping those roofs simple. Some of those complex roof forms can be attractive. Some people are really attracted to little dormers on their roofs, but those are not particularly good for air sealing simplicity, and they don't provide as good a surface for the most economical kinds of solar panels we currently have available. I'm sure that there are going to be more solar panels that are more like shingles themselves coming out, but those are still relatively expensive. If you're planning to put a tile roof on your house, then maybe the solar panels that are also shingles would be a competitive consideration, but most of us are not able to afford that level of roofing material. So, and then the other thing to bear in mind is that you don't want to put new solar panels on top of an old roof. So if you've got shingles that are either relatively new, or if you're getting ready to replace them in the next couple of years, then you might also want to take that opportunity to look into solar panels. And the solar installers are able to kind of evaluate your home just using satellite imagery. They don't even need to come out to kind of take a look and see whether they think that your house is worth more discussion or not. So, with all of this, now that you know about heat pumps and the Inflation Reduction Act and cooktops and so forth, it's time to start making your own action plan for your house. And part of the key here is that you don't need to do all of this, you know, in the next 12 months or even in the next 3 years, but you've got to, having a kind of a plan ahead of you really helps. After I'd been in the house down the street for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years, I was starting to feel really kind of frustrated about how much I was able to do. I was kind of an energy audit junkie. I had the first one when I first heard about them, and then I did a comparison between the ones from Dominion East Ohio Gas versus somebody like Mr. Home Doctor, who was advertising at the Home and Garden Show. And then when I worked with Nate Adams of Energy Smart Home Performance was his company at that time, he did another one and decided that since I'd already added plenty of insulation in the attic and I'd already insulated the rim joists around the where your floor joists in the basement come on top of the foundation wall, that area is a great area to get air sealed. Just stuffing fiberglass insulation in that space is not especially helpful. You need foam of some sort. Or I've also got a detail to do it in cellulose if you want to avoid the foam. But I made a number of changes, and so then when it came time to change out the furnace, all of a sudden I had an all-electric home, and I was able to feel like, wow, okay, we've done some things, and we've got the water efficient toilets, and I was starting to feel pretty good about that house. So action plan, evaluating your insulation and air sealing is always a great place to start. Just like in reduce, reuse, recycle, reduce is the first one. Reduce how much energy your home is going to use is the first step. Then simply knowing when your furnace is probably going to need to be replaced, when your air conditioner might need to be replaced, the water heater, whether the cooktop is coming up for replacement, or whether you can justify replacing it anyhow because you'd really rather have an induction. Being aware of those things is a good thing. I know some people are just of course I know when my furnace is going to need to be replaced, but not all of us are really tuned into those things, and it makes a difference, because the last thing you want is for it to be that cold snap in January, and the HVAC guys are swamped and your house is getting cold and you need to make a decision now, and they say, we can put in this, it's pretty much just like what you had, and you just say, yes, please make it happen now. That's not the time to investigate doing something different. And I see that we're getting some things over here in the chat. Now I'm not able to read at the same time I'm talking, so we'll come back around to those things. So, and then evaluating your roof for solar. Not all homes are going to be a good choice for that, but I know that there are a ton of houses on my walk route here in my neighborhood that are just like, oh my gosh, you should have solar panels. They'll pay for themselves. Just do it. Then once you kind of start having this list of what the needs of your house are, you can start looking into exactly what that might mean for you in terms of rebates or tax credits. And then for sure, if you need a new air conditioner, if you're at all able to come up with that little bit of extra to cover the cost of the heat pump feature on that, that's a great thing to do to start moving away from the fossil fuels. There's some talk that eventually they may stop even making standalone air conditioners, that they will all be heat pumps as well. And then if you've got a home that has a boiler system, especially if you currently have window air conditioning units, look into those mini split heat pumps as a way to provide that cooling more efficiently, and also be able to provide a little bit of heat using electricity. And of course, I would advise you to talk to your tax advisor regarding any of these specifics. I've done my best to be accurate on the numbers and things I've got shown here, but this is not what I do for my day job. So, and thanks again to Dow of the Crown Group for the conversation he had with me yesterday. So I will stop my share.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hallie. I think most people have stayed on. We've set an all-time attendance record for our group here at 68 at one point that we're here. But we're open for questions, and I'm going to suggest that rather than just putting things in the chat, there have been things being put into the chat, that you unmute yourself and try to speak up one at a time, which is tricky. If two of you come on at one time, we'll work it out. And then we'll go on from there. So unmute, the bottom left-hand corner usually is the way to unmute.
I also would recommend that if you could go to the reactions. And I know if people are not using Zoom on a regular basis, they might not be familiar, but on my screen, it's down at the bottom of the screen. If I move my mouse, these other tools show up, and there's a little smiley face that says reactions. And if you hover over that, there's a raise hand feature. And when you raise your hand, it actually creates a queue. So whoever gets their hand up first can be called on first. So that's a nice way to do it.
Yep. Would anyone like to start? There's one on Carol Thomes from Barberton, right? It could be
Chippewa Lake.
Okay.
From
Oh, Chippewa Lake.
Right.
Hi,
Hi, Hallie. We came from a all-electric home, and we've moved into a smaller home in Chippewa Lake where it is not all electric. as our others was. We have a generator here. We did not have a generator in our all-electric home. How do you do a generator in an all-electric home? Can you connect it to solar? Well, how do you do that?
That's a great question. I think that a couple ways to approach that. The super electrical approach would be to get battery backups. The battery systems are still relatively expensive, and to really cover all of the needs of the homes would be a significant expense. So another way to do it is to go ahead and get a fossil fuel generator that uses gas, and but then you're only using that gas when you need it for emergencies, as opposed to all the time.
Right.
Okay, Rad ladies, we're next.
So we just moved into a new house. We downsized from our house in Bath and we moved to West Akron. We have a heat pump here, which is working great. It was down to -5 around Christmas, and we stayed pretty, it was a little cooler, but we just put another sweater on, but mostly it works really well. We were thinking about, we pretty much have all electric. We got rid of the gas fireplace. We got rid of the gas stove. And we got the heat pump instead. The house is about 18 years old, and it was the original furnace. So we just got a heat pump and air conditioner for our home. So we're pretty much all electric, except we do have a gas generator. We still have to pay about $40 a month. It has a test once a week, and it gives us, that backup. We have a question about, we're thinking of putting solar panels on the last step here. We do have a south facing roof that is, it appears to be appropriate. It's not shaded, and I think it's appropriate. Question is, what do you think about getting the battery with the with solar panels on the roof? Is that doable now, or should we wait on that? That's the thing that we're wondering about.
I think that's worth looking into. I put my panels up like 4 years ago. That's getting to be ancient history as far as I don't know that the panels themselves have changed all that much, but some of the electrical things. I know I'm aware of a company that's creating electric panels that are really kind of geared towards this combination of battery backup plus solar plus, doing it all. So those things are coming. I think that when you talk with the companies that give you some proposals for the solar system, ask about that and what their thoughts are on it. And one of the questions is going to be exactly what you want to back up with those that storage.
Thank you.
So
Any more?
I'm not sure, but it's worth thinking about.
Okay, and
What do you mean by what we want to back up? I'm sorry.
Well, are you looking just to back up your freezer and a couple outlets where you could, charge cell phones and, backing up, especially with battery, backing up your heat pump system? That might be kind of a stretch. So.
Okay.
And thank you for the presentation. Great
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Ann Welby.
Yes, I was wondering how many amps it takes to run an induction cooktop efficiently.
and you're asking me technical questions.
Sorry. Okay,
I
sorry.
have to research for that.
Okay, sorry, Hallie.
Chris DeFrank.
Hello, Hallie, thank you very much. Great presentation. Really appreciate you doing that. I have dumb questions. Everyone else has smart questions. I'm an expert at asking dumb questions.
Good.
My first dumb question is, so your whole house is electrified, correct?
Yes.
Where is that electricity coming from?
it is probably coming from the same place yours is coming from. However, I am paying, as far as the actual electrons, it's coming from the same place that my neighbor's is. But I am paying for 100% renewable supplier. So some wind farm out in Iowa is probably getting my money for the electricity that I use as part of this big trading thing that they do.
Okay, that's a little over my head. I'm not really sure how that works. But I could figure it out. So I would love to go in this direction. I've always thought that installing solar panels on one's roof was the first step in that direction. Am I mistaken?
Yes.
Well, it used to be, 15 years ago, I would not have suggested solar as the first step. At this point, I kind of feel like if your roof is ripe for solar and your shingles are at the right age for doing new solar panels, just go for it.
Pretty new roof and it faces south.
Yeah, just because it's just a good thing to do and everybody should be doing it. And meanwhile, once you've got that done, then you can start thinking about more air sealing or something.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Carolyn Burley. Carolyn, can you unmute yourself on the phone there? Okay, let's wait a second and go to Jeanette Coleridge. Can you unmute yourself in the bottom left-hand corner, probably?
I'm unmuted now.
Okay, Carolyn, go ahead.
Okay, they asked about putting a generator in an all-electric house. I've got an all-electric house, and since my husband was on dialysis all night, we had to get it. So we've got it. It's done with propane. So I gotta pay so much a year, like $56, and then I also have to pay for the propane that I use, which isn't very much. So fortunately, since we got it, we really haven't been without electricity, but it's with propane that we have our generator hooked up, and it's just for the upstairs. I'm on a one-floor house, and so the basement. So I can't do the laundry or stuff, but our first floor where our refrigerator and stuff is, that's covered in the generator. So
okay.
you can get a generator in an all-electric house with propane.
Yes, and that would allow you to eliminate that monthly gas bill.
Mm-hmm. Well, we couldn't even have where I live now. They got gas now, but when we built the house in '93, I had a choice of oil or all electric. And then even when I got married to Bob, we still didn't have the gas going down in our neighborhood. It does now. So I didn't have much choice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jeanette Coleridge, I think you came on a different system so you could unmute yourself. Am I right?
You are correct.
Yeah.
I had a few questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. Just kind of approaching all of this from a new standpoint. So I'm looking at insulation, and I was wondering if you had any suggestions. I guess you mentioned briefly someone who could do an energy assessment. And would you mind going into that and maybe what companies? I did see that Dominion offered one, but that was really the only one in the area that I saw that did something like that.
Yes, and I think that going with the Dominion is fine. Nate isn't quite so enthusiastic about those low-hanging fruit audits.
Right.
But I actually, kind of compared head to head the extremely affordable audit from Dominion and the ones from, I think it was Mr. Home Doctor. And if you're not really looking to spend $10,000 on your insulation package right away, which, Mr. Home Doctor, I do think that they would do an excellent job. They were very knowledgeable, very enthusiastic, but also definitely selling their services in a big way.
Right.
But the guys from the Dominion audit will come through and do the blower door test. They put this red contraption on your front door and depressurize the house, which allows them to go through and find places where the air is coming in, and they can actually measure just how leaky your house is. And one of the first audit that I had done down the street, I hadn't been in the house that long. I hope I would have noticed this before too long myself, but the house used to have a boiler that had been replaced already by the furnace. And in the chimney there next to where the boiler used to sit was a hole that connected the basement to the sky. And it was about, softball size, or certainly baseball size, just, taking the heated air up into the sky every day, all the time. So there are things like that that they can find that are just big stuff. And then, of course, a lot of smaller things. And the Dominion program at least used to have rebates available connected to that. And they'll also bring you some goodies, to just some inexpensive goodies to help with weatherization and low flow shower heads and things like that when they go through as well. So yeah, I'd go ahead and start with that Dominion audit.
Okay, and then when you have someone come out to help you kind of look at insulation, can they also help you navigate some of these other new rebates? Is that typically what companies are aware of through the new plan?
I would not expect the Dominion guys to do that. Now, if you did a search for HERS raters, HERS, all capitalized HERS, those guys would probably be more familiar with what's going on with the rebate systems and so forth. One gentleman I work with is Jason Puffenbarger from Green Building Consulting, which is based in Cincinnati, but they've got people up here. Another guy is Ralph Kilgore, and there's another guy out in Medina whose name is not coming to mind right now, but these are the guys who can christen a house as being zero energy ready and that kind of thing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, Richard Coyne, it seems to me you are probably from the Climate Reality Project. Am I right?
Yes, in
Great to
Charlotte.
have you guys on.
Well, thanks for allowing us to come on. This has been a great presentation. My question, do you know of anybody in the Northeast Ohio area doing a blower door test so I can get an idea about air infiltration?
Yes, that's the same thing that I was speaking of with Jeanette there. In fact, if maybe before we sign off, I can find the link to the Dominion site and post it in the chat.
Well, we do not have gas.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, that would, so you'd be looking for that Green Energy Consulting, or Ralph Kilgore's group is A Green Energy, and it's kind of all one word. So if you have trouble finding those, you could send me an email and I will put my email here and my phone number.
Just a comment, I've been trying to get somebody through Angie's list and, or Angie now, I guess, and Angie is bombarding me with all kinds of, get your house painted and your siding replaced. And so far they haven't given me anybody that's actually doing the blower door test.
Okay. Yeah, send me an email and I'll help to hook you up with somebody.
Just a quick comment on the induction cooktops. The ones I've looked at are 220 volt, and like a each burner is gonna be about 1,500 watts. So it does take maybe a 30 amp breaker or something like that. And if anybody knows it's a 40 amp breaker, I'm not sure, but it's certainly not a 20 amp breaker.
And maybe later on, you can tell me why it is that you're interested in knowing the number of amps, as opposed to just letting your builder take care of that. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
And it looks like it's Bill Toombs this time from Chippewa Lake. Am I right?
I'm right here. Hi, Hallie.
Hi.
The gentleman asked a question. We're not an all-electric home, but like yourselves, we get all our electric provided by renewable sources rather than otherwise. And there is a website you go to. It's called energychoice.ohio.gov. energychoice.ohio.gov. Now you do need your account number, your provider, and then they can change you over to all renewable energy sources.
Have you found them to be competitive?
I don't worry about the competitive part. I worry about only the environmental part. I don't know whether it's competitive or not.
Well,
Okay.
actually, that the .gov website that Bill is speaking of is the apples to apples.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Which is where you find what your choices are, so you can decide what program you want
Right.
to.
If you
And
shop,
I'm not-
you can find low priced all renewable. Just go to that site and shop carefully.
Now, I'm not so sure you can't transfer it over also by just calling a provider, Ohio, like I have Ohio Edison. And I tell them you want switched over. But again, you're not comparing anything.
Right, here at the apples to apples website, you pick who your supplier is, whether it's First Energy or AEP, and then you decide whether you want to have a fixed plan or a variable plan, and then you can see what your options are. Oh, and there are
Right.
filters. You filter that you only want to look at the 100% renewables, so you don't have to even look at the ones that are not.
Okay.
And the other thing you have to make sure people look at, sometimes they forget, you're still going to pay the distribution cost to Ohio Edison. You're only paying for renewable part for the electricity provided. Am I making myself clear or not? Confusing. Ohio Edison will still charge you for their delivery cost.
Right, so if you're looking at your bill, that can get confusing, but when you're looking at the apples to apples site, everything is apples to apples there. But you got a point there, Bill, on that.
Okay.
Also, within the city of Akron, the city of Akron's aggregate program is green energy, but it is all from the nuclear plant. So, you know,
Something else I may recommend to check, it happens that our community, as a community, has signed up to be a partner with NOPEC, which gives them also an electric reduction on price as a aggregate buyer.
Yeah, okay.
No
And
pick.
then we have a
Also,
man with a substantial beard who's only identified as G, lowercase. I
I'm
think you're
Greg
next.
Tkachuk.
You're what?
Greg Tkachuk.
Okay.
We spoke by telephone, actually, Dick, last spring when I was looking into getting some solar panels installed on our roof. I thought
Okay.
I'd update you on that and everybody else with our experience.
Right.
We did have a new roof installed in 2021, so all that was okay. We live in a rather wooded neighborhood, so our house faces east. Not a real good candidate, I guess, for solar collection. We've got a bunch of oak trees on the east side of our house. Our neighbors have to the south have a bunch of oak trees, and we have a bunch of oak trees in the west. So be skeptical about any of these satellite images when you talk to your solar installer. But we went through Energy Sage, energysage.org, I believe it is, and got some estimates from different solar installers. And like I said, be skeptical. I mean, they were putting solar panels all over our waste stacks on the roof, and their satellite images were basically taken during the winter when there weren't any leaves on the trees.
Oh,
So
my.
it didn't basically indicate the shadiness that we have in our house. Although one estimate did say, well, you're going to have to cut your trees down, which
Yeah.
wasn't a solution, especially since the trees were mostly our neighbors to the south. So we ended up getting a third estimate from a local installer over in Canton, Electriculture, young kid, just kind of starting out in the business, and he kind of took it as a challenge. He was hesitant about giving us any kind of estimate to begin with, and of course was not even considering using a battery backup or a battery collection system, just because he found them to be pretty much unreliable and very expensive for what we had. So actually, he actually came out to the house rather than the other people just kind of looking at satellite images, went up on the roof and came up with a couple of estimates for us. We finally had a 4.6 kilowatt small 10 panel system installed on our roof on the west portion and on the east portion. And overall, we've been happy with it. It's been a learning experience. Today, we finally got a little bit of sunshine, had about 2.5 kilowatt hours collected. And we started, actually put it online on the summer solstice, which was amazing. We had about 11 or 12 kilowatt hours that we collected that particular day. So it's been we've been getting the power to our system first, and then it goes into the bidirectional meter for First Energy. So overall, his estimate indicated that I'd probably have to live to be 100, which is pretty far off it considering, even though I've got a beard, that, it's still a ways off. But we were deciding at that time that it was worth the effort to try to at least collect some of our solar power, and we've been happy with it. We got probably about 77% of what his estimate was in terms of what we'd collect every month on a daily basis, because I've been kind of monitoring that. And there's a monitoring program that actually hooks up to the solar panels on your roof, and you can keep track of things. So overall, we've been happy with it. And, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Dave Ambrose is next. We still have some people lined up here.
Do you recommend a monitoring system to best utilize the watts produced by my solar panels especially as First Energy phases in its time varying rate program?
I think that I was not aware that they're phasing in the time varying rate program, and is that something that's available like now?
Well, I received a letter December 23rd saying that they're going to test their system with qualifying customers.
Okay, because I will definitely be interested in that. I think I've got a monitoring system because Nate was excited about it, but on the one hand, I geek out about some things, and on the other hand, I don't geek out about other things. And I have not paid a lot of attention to my own current monitoring system, and I have not taught it what things are, because the one I've got, you kind of need to go around and it makes good guesses about some things, but some things you need to work with it on. I will look forward to working with the timed system for when I charge my car, and I believe that my heat pump water heater is already geared to be smart if I ask it to be. Most of your daily stuff, you know what's going to use the big numbers that you can make decisions about when it happens. So it's not a bad thing, and they're not all that expensive, but on the other hand, I don't think it's critical.
Anything else, Dave? For those of you who care, Dave is in Warren, Ohio. I don't know if First Energy is doing that, phasing in everywhere or just there. Okay, Andrea Sharb.
Hi, thanks, Hallie. This has been amazing. And a little bit different type of question. We are in the process of looking to build a home. And when you are doing this, and we want to make sure that it's as green as possible, where does one start these days? Because we're finding lots of builders who are touting themselves as being green. And I'm finding they really know less than I do.
I think you and I need to have a full-scale conversation. That's what I think.
Okay, so start with an architect as opposed to with finding a builder then.
Yes, and I focus on this stuff, and I'm trying to get all my new homes to be as energy efficient as possible. The Inflation Reduction Act also has extra tax credits available for homes that are certified as Energy Star. I believe you could get an extra $2,500 if you're Energy Star and $5,000 if you're Zero Energy Ready. And I'm a big fan of the Zero Energy Ready program. That's relative to the cost of building a new home. That's pretty small potatoes, but it's something.
It's something. Okay, I will definitely give you a call then. Thank you so much.
Okay.
It was great.
Lynn Hawkins. You have to unmute, yeah.
Hi, Hallie.
Hi, Lynn, how are you?
I'm good. I made a little comment about my geothermal, but that was back in 2007, and I did it backwards. I didn't get the blower door tests and all of that. Our furnace failed right after we moved back here when David was going through his illness, and so it was an emergency, and I'd always said I was going to get geothermal. So I do love it, but we do need to do the whole energy audit. But my question right now is about this energy choice program, and I don't know if anybody knows, but I'm in what used to be Northampton Township, which is now part of Cuyahoga Falls, and we have municipal power. So I guess I'll have to check with them if they even offer that, because I'm not Ohio Edison anymore. Does anybody know offhand?
I do not know offhand. I'm kind of thinking that your municipal is your delivery company, and that you may be they may be required to allow you to choose your supplier. I'm guessing, but I don't really know about that.
I'll have to call them, but I just thought maybe someone would know. But it does sound, very appealing to get all renewable energy that way.
Yeah. or Lynn, I think that probably, especially at the time, the geothermal, did you have oil before?
No, we had a gas furnace before.
It was gas. Okay. All right.
And actually, I'm down to just a gas dryer, so I need to get rid of that and get rid of my meter.
Yeah, especially, you know, your drying needs probably aren't that huge, so.
No. But thank you so much. I enjoyed this and everybody's comments.
And just a basic electric, inexpensive electric dryer would do it for you, Lynn.
Yeah, and my monthly gas bill would pay for it.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Okay, Ann Welby again.
I just wanted to say that Hallie designed my new home that's going up, and it's going to be extremely energy efficient and solar ready. And she did a great job, and she's wonderful to work with. So if anyone's thinking of building,
Good.
I highly recommend working with Hallie.
Thank you, Ann.
This is Dick Beck again, and I'd like to mention two things. One is that solar for church buildings. The Unitarian Universalist Church has 44 solar panels or something like that. And they are set up on a flat roof with almost no raising of one end to put the thing up, but they're also set up so that you can remove them quickly. It's a crazy flat roof. It's an old one like with the cinders on it, if you remember those old things. And apparently they do just fine with that. I'm looking into them for churches that I'm associated with, and I understand that the IRA has a way to allow not-for-profit agencies to get help from the government. In other words, in the past, and I think when the Unitarian Church put them on, if you get someone to buy them for 10 years or something like that, that you can get a tax write-off for those people, and then you buy them back and all that kind of garbage. And apparently that's not needed under the IRA anymore.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. That's good to know. I hadn't looked into that aspect of things that much.
Yeah, and I appreciate what Hallie's doing on that stuff. We had a guy on from Kent named Brad Brochi. I think he's gone, but he has about 50 solar panels on his house. He had decided that he wanted to do it all by himself. I don't know if he went off the grid, which would be, to me, a little very dangerous. But if anyone's interested, I could get you in touch with Brad to see what's going on. And I think he's an architect too, but he may be retired, Hallie. So I appreciate the fact that you are on. And you mentioned Nate Adams, who did a program for us 2 or 3. What is that? Is that the clean energy?
That's the solar use at the church this past month.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I have solar panels on my house too, and we get very little during these few weeks. I'm looking at weeks now, and last week we had 26 kilowatts, but the week before were 9 and 6 and things like that. But during the summer, of course, I get 125 or something like that most of the time with 18 panels. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you could go into that kind of thing. Are there further questions? Oh, yep, there's one from an iPhone. That's all we know. iPhone. Yep.
Oh, hi, Chris. You need to unmute. No, we can't. You look like you're unmuted.
You have a microphone you have to turn on. You want to put something in the chat? And we can talk to Steve Bagstad, who is representing Citizens Climate Lobby, right, Steve?
Yes, that's right. That's right, Dick. Thanks. And Hallie, thanks for, it was great to, we definitely have some members on here besides just me. So thank you all for coming. And just want to say really nice project. We're down here in snowbirding in coastal Alabama right now. And it's a little distressing to me as I walk around here and see all this lovely sunshine and there isn't a solar panel in sight.
Oh.
It's just terrible. I think the reason is because the Alabama legislators puts in some fairly punitive things into their rate structures that make it hard to, to go solar down here, which is kind of, it's just crazy, the opportunity is so nice. But anyway, yeah, we have solar on our home too. And, doing good. I guess I think all the questions or comments I'd thought of, everybody's pretty well answered by now. The city plans, I just put a thing in the chat about Google Project Sunroof. You can look at that. If you're considering the possibility of solar, it's a good first place to just take a glance. It shows your property, your home, you put in an address and off you go, pretty simple. Anyway, that's great. Again, thanks a lot, Hallie and Dick. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And are we getting any? I'm trying to look in the chat down here and see if I can get anything from Chris. I don't know which Chris this is, but
It's Chris Hagan. He knows how to find me.
okay, let's see if he's got anything in the chat yet. No.
Let's see.
Okay, I don't see anything from you, Chris. So, okay. Further comments? Questions? Thoughts? Anybody want to make any comments out loud? I want to find out who Frank is from Cleveland, Ohio. Are you with one of the groups, Citizens Climate Lobby, or the other one? Uh-oh, can you unmute yourself in the bottom left-hand corner? Uh-oh, we still aren't here. You're still muted. There.
Yeah, I'm also with CCL. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I work with Steve.
Great.
With CCL, yeah.
Super. Well, I'm hoping we can do more things together. Some of you may know that Denise Woods, who is coming home from visiting her mother right this minute, maybe home by now for all I know, got us together for a Summit County Executives Luncheon. And she got some people from CCO and the Climate Reality Project and the Sierra Club to share a table. And next year, she wants us to share 3 tables at the Summit County Executives Luncheon and ask environmental questions. Okay, so I'm told, I did not bother with that because I'm in Stark County rather than Summit. I'm told that we had, with our 11 people who were there, we had 4 questions that were answered, which was pretty impressive. And one of the things that Denise is pushing for is to say, go to local governmental functions and just ask environmental questions and let people know that you are there as a presence for people who want to have a more sustainable lifestyle. I think that's a great idea. And just yesterday at a Martin Luther King thing, I was able to ask an environmental question to a guy, minister who came in from Chicago at a Jewish Maltz Museum up in Cleveland. Some of you know that area. Okay, so that's just another comment about things we can do to make life more sustainable. We do have problems in Ohio right now in our legislature, as all of you know, I'm sure. But if we keep talking with them, you never know what can happen. Let's keep talking and maybe we can change the legislature too and get some less gerrymandered districts in Ohio. Hallie, but I would like to make sure that you have the last word here.
Well, I just appreciate everybody coming out, and if you've got other questions that you think of, feel free to get in touch with me. And I'll, also glad to speak to other organizations. If you know some other group that you think needs to hear this, I'd be glad to share this information with others as well.
Is there anyone you see on right now that you would like to ask any questions to publicly or have comments from?
Not that I can think of right now, but I know that an organization like this, it's always great because there are always lots of smart people in the room who often know things that I don't know. So.
Okay.
And I've taken some notes, especially about some of the solar installers here in the area that people have worked with, that kind of thing.
Okay. If you would like to get a copy of the recording of this, if I don't know your email address, I will not send it to you. I'll probably send it to a lot of the people who are in the Sierra Club, but I won't get it to others of you unless you let me know somehow. And I'm at 330-807-2800. You can always leave a message there or text me there. 807-2800 with a 330 area code.
I'm putting that in the chat for you.
Oh yeah, I should have done that myself, but okay. Any other comments? Looks like Laurel Gress came in after the meeting she was at, and we do have a Wild Places Sierra Club meeting, National Sierra Club meeting going on right now that started at 8 o'clock. 5 o'clock Pacific time, I think is the way they talk about it.
I didn't see I didn't see an email about that.
Well, it just came in yesterday, so okay.
Hmm.
Other comments from anyone?
I just wanted to tell Hallie that I have an all-electric home too, and I had to have one because we don't have gas lines out here.
Mm-hmm. Well, the nice thing about now is that it used to be that you had to have an all-electric home, and now the technology and the efficiencies of things are getting to the point where you can be glad to have an all-electric home.
Oh, I am. No gas bill, no water bill, no sewer bill, just an electric bill. And now some people have propane too.
Mm-hmm.
And some people have their own gas well, so they get to have gas.
I believe I'm gonna cut us off here unless there's anyone else who would like to say anything.
I want to say thank you again.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Hallie.
Thanks a lot, Hallie. Okay.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Hallie. Thank you.